Welcome to Prevention Saves. I'm Alice McCaffrey with Sullivan County Anti-Drug Coalition.
And I'm Melanie Eisen, the Prevention Coordinator with the Sullivan County Anti-Drug Coalition.
We will be your hosts for Prevention Saves, and we will be having lots of folks come in. We will talk about prevention, intervention, and harm reduction. But for the first couple of episodes, we will talk to each other so you can learn more about what the coalition does. And with summer right around the corner and kids getting out of school, we're going to start with underage drinking. So Melanie, your grant mostly covers our underage drinking. So first of all, based on our goals, what would you say the work you do is? More prevention, intervention, or harm reduction?
The work that we've been focused on with the coalition around underage drinking would be mostly prevention. A little bit of harm reduction in there. We've been focusing on enforcement, having law enforcement make sure that they're doing compliance checks and that our beer boards are enforcing the laws and enforcing fines if people are not compliant with the underage drinking laws.
Okay, and so how exactly does that fit with the organization's goals?
So the coalition is, the whole goal of the coalition is to prevent underage drinking, and then tobacco initiation prevention and prescription drug abuse. So with that, we're trying to prevent, when you talk about alcohol specifically, younger kids, underage drinkers, under than 21, having access to alcohol, whether mostly through, at this point, retail environments, restaurants, off-premises in places, but also preventing them from accessing alcohol at home and that in other environments like that.
So the name of our show is called Prevention Saves. Right. What do these prevention efforts save?
Specifically, when we talk about underage drinking, we all know that there's a lot of danger with youth drinking and driving, of course. That's so dangerous for anybody, but especially for younger people. We hear of terrible tragedies every single year in all communities across the United States where youth have gotten into cars after drinking or gotten into a car with someone who's already, has been drinking, and tragic, they're very severely injured or die. So that's one thing that prevention saves is lives. It also saves brains. So there's some very good studies out there that show how when our underage youth use alcohol before age 21, that it hampers their brain development, specifically for with their decision making. So we talk about the prefrontal cortex and how that slows down the development and the finishing developing of that brain. And when the more they drink, the more they binge, the more that is affected over time. So being able to keep young people from using alcohol, especially excessively, will definitely help save brain power. The other thing that it affects, drinking affects their brain, is learning. So if they're studying for a hard test, the next day they drink, that information is lost. So they've really done themselves a disservice that way, because it hampers their learning and memory power. So we really want to save brains with preventing underage drinking. And the other thing that youth can be concerned with, not only their brain power, but they can lose their driver's license. So it'll save a driver's license and lots of money if they get caught using alcohol underage.
Okay, and I just want to briefly come back to, I know that through our work we have both learned a lot about brain development. Could you just speak very quickly to the difference between the adolescent brain and the adult brain when it comes to using substances?
Yes. The thing about younger brains is that the brain is formed from the lower part, the limbic system, and it slowly, gradually, finally finishes developing when they reach about 23 to 25 years of age. And that frontal cortex, that prefrontal cortex, is the last part to be developed. Basically, it's the last part to be myelinated, let's say. So in that process, when you are using alcohol or other substances, this is related to tobacco and prescription, any kind of substances like that. Has some developmental consequences. But when we're talking about alcohol, that will slow that process down and prevent it from completion.
So why does the coalition need to address this problem? Is underage drinking a problem here?
It is a problem, unfortunately, in Sullivan County. Usage rates with our youth have gone down slowly and surely, and that's a great thing, but they're still higher. At our last survey that we did, it showed approximately 19% had used alcohol within the past 30 days. And a lot of the youth in Sullivan County had identified that the first time they ever used alcohol was when they were about 13 and a half years old. So that's very young when you think about that. That's still middle school age, and they're accessing alcohol then. So that's definitely something that we need to consider and take into account when we're doing our prevention efforts, at what age we need to talk to those kids about drinking and alcohol. Is young, a lot younger than 13.
So we know it's a problem here. Do we have any information about exactly why it is? What is the biggest part of the problem here?
We do. One of the big problems is access. So in the past, retail access had been the biggest problem. They were able to purchase alcohol at restaurants, at off-premises sites. I don't think that the data that we have is showing that is the biggest problem now. I think at this point, children, younger adults are able to access alcohol through either older adults, older siblings, older friends that they know, and they're also accessing it at home with permission from their parents. Sometimes the parents are providing it or allowing them to use the alcohol while they're present at home, or sometimes without their permission. So what they're doing is getting into the liquor cabinet, of the parents when they're not home or not around, and using it that way. So those, I think, have been identified as more of the current problem right now in Sullivan County.
So it sounds a little bit like some old-fashioned social norms. This is a rite of passage.
That's right.
But don't we have some information now that we didn't have prior to maybe the mid-90s?
That's right. All the brain development research that has been going on the last 20 years has really told us that, drinking, we always knew drinking and driving was bad. That's definitely a detriment to young people. But now we know that, underage drinking causes a lot longer term effects with that brain development. If they continue to use at excessive rates, there is increased risk of being dependent on alcohol as they get older into adulthood, and also increased risk of having mood disorders like depression and anxiety. Those type of things also increases their risk if they are continuously using alcohol. So
Okay.
There's been a lot of research.
So there are strategies in place to try to prevent underage drinking. Is there any evidence that these strategies are working?
There are, because we continue to see rates decline of use. It's a slow process, slower than that, but the strategies that we've been using in Sullivan County, especially for retail access, it seems to be working. Retailers are doing a better job of not selling. I wouldn't say it's perfect. There's still some work to be done around there. And a continued educational efforts with our retailers, restaurants especially, and then off-premise, not selling to underage, and making sure that there's not older adults coming in who are purchasing alcohol for others. They can also have a role in that too. But and so those strategies, I think, are working. I think we need a little bit different focus at this point, maybe. Around advertising. The advertising to youth is extremely high, especially on the internet, and also with the beverages that are being sold now look like sodas or are sodas. Basically, they're alcoholic sodas. They've got hard root beers and different blue and orange drinks. If you go into the grocery store, you see those, and those are marketed to our youth. Unfortunately, that is what they would be more attracted to because they're sweeter.
And we've even heard stories of adults accidentally picking one up and getting in a car without realizing until they're in the car down the road and have had a few sips. So
there was a restaurant a couple years ago who served a hard root beer to a child. The server didn't realize there was a difference. So this is a problem.
And for the servers or the retailers, you can provide them with training if they need it. How would they contact you?
That's right. So we do a couple different trainings. We'll do the ABC card training for servers and bartenders, so they can get that ABC card. They need to have it every 5 years if they're working, or if they've just started serving. They need to get that card to be able to serve liquor by the drink. And then also our local beer boards require them to get the ABC card too. And then if you're an off-premise seller, you sell at a convenience store, grocery store, especially lots of wine and grocery stores now. If you need that card, we can also provide that training. And we're doing that training at our office on a regular basis once a month. Usually it's the second or third Monday at 9 a.m. It's a morning class. It does take, for the on-premise ABC card, takes 5 hours minimum. But then we also provide training to help restaurants if they have some policy issues. We can help them develop some policies to make sure that their servers are doing what they need to do to ID and card and make sure that's happening.
So what can the rest of the community do? Is there an app for that?
There is an app for that. So Sullivan County Anti-Drug Coalition has a mobile app that you can download off of iTunes or the Google Play Store, and it does a couple of different wonderful things, but it's basically to identify problem areas in the community around alcohol and tobacco. So with alcohol, there's two different features on there. You can scan for the retail environment to let us know if there are the retailers are marketing specifically towards our youth. And then the other one that's really easy to use and all adults can participate with is if you are purchasing alcohol out at a restaurant or off-premise store, you can pull up the alcohol ID scan, and it's really quick. All you have to do is just say where you're at, if you were carded or not, and it's very quick. If you're purchasing alcohol, it just takes a few minutes. If there is a problem with a retailer and they're not carding like they should be, or you suspect there's underage drinking going on there, then that way we can contact that restaurant and say, hey, we noticed that you might need a little bit of help with some policy changes, extra training. We're not trying to get anybody, we're trying to help them not get caught or not serve to underage youth and get fined by TABC or beer boards. We want them to apply all the laws and be good stewards of that.
Well, summer is coming. kids will have more free time.
That's right.
Do you have any tips for parents or grandparents or caregivers or anyone else who may be interacting with our youth?
So during the summertime, it has been recognized that this is a time period when kids have a little more time left on their own devices, especially older teens, and they are more likely to start using alcohol or other substances that we don't necessarily think they should be. So it's a really good time, especially with graduation season coming up, prom. At this point, it's probably already happened, but next prom season, we want parents to talk to your kids. They may roll their eyes at you and pretend they're not listening, but the more you talk to them about the dangers, those little incidental things that are happening, that really makes a huge difference. And they will hear it. They may roll their eyes at you, but it's getting in there. The other tips is ask where they're going. Ask about their friends. Ask, what kind of things that they're doing. Just continuously trying to get information out of them, which sometimes can be very difficult. But it's important just to keep that dialogue going, not accusatory, but a very comfortable dialogue. Another thing that I particularly like to do with my own kids is if we watch a movie or a TV show that has shows underage drinking or something like that, it's a great time to bring up that subject and go, hey, what do you think about that? Or do your friends ever act like that? Do they ever drink like that? Have you ever seen something like this happen with your friends or classmates or whatever? And that's just a really easy way to talk about it without accusing, right, without making them defensive. So keep those tips in mind. But the other thing is too, if you're suspecting that they may be getting into the alcohol, maybe keep it locked up, keep it put up, keep it out of the house, so that way they're not able to access it. Another good tip, model good behavior. That's important. As an adult, show them what responsible use looks like. That moderation is the key to alcohol use. So those are all important steps. So.
Melanie, thank you for telling us about the Sullivan County Anti-Drug Coalition's underage drinking initiatives today. And everyone, thank you for joining us on Prevention Saves. Our motto on our logo is to learn, share, prevent. So please go on out there, learn something new, share something new, and prevent someone that you love from initiating substance abuse.